What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're ready because tonight we are diving headfirst into what I can only describe as a monster winter storm that's about to absolutely wallop a massive chunk of this country. This is one of those systems where you look at the maps and just shake your head because the scope is almost hard to believe. We're talking impacts from the southern plains all the way up through the northeast, and honestly, some of the numbers we're seeing are borderline historic for certain areas. Now here's the tricky part. The big question marks are going to be in southern Oklahoma tomorrow morning. Are we waking up to really heavy sleet or a lot of freezing rain? That's going to make a huge difference in how things play out, and honestly, it's one of those things we just have to watch unfold in real time. This storm is essentially broken into two waves. The first wave is a little disconnected from the second, and you can really see that as the system progresses. By tomorrow afternoon, we've got heavy sleet and snow overriding Arkansas up into Missouri. Western Tennessee is looking at a wintry mix between snow and sleet. But then there's this ongoing ice storm, and I mean a potentially crippling ice storm, stretching from northern Louisiana through the Delta region of Mississippi. By the way, if you'd like specific weather forecasts for your region or city, please leave them in the comments. I'll answer them individually as time allows. Also, if you like the video and subscribe to my channel, you'd be very grateful. Now, let's move on. Here comes the really interesting part. When the second wave fills in and we push into Sunday morning, if the models are correct, this transforms into one giant sleet storm, stretching from Midland and Odessa right through Abilene all the way to Dallas-Fort Worth and into Little Rock. Even Shreveport stays mainly sleet on some of this guidance. I've said it multiple times now, and I'll say it again. There are going to be areas that go into this expecting a catastrophic ice storm, but might actually get saved by sleet instead. The models are showing this possibility really hardcore, and that would make a significant difference for power infrastructure and travel. Let me break down the numbers state by state because I know that's what you really want to see. Starting with Kansas, Wichita is looking at 6 to 10 inches of snow. Kansas City, they've actually dropped their totals a bit to around 5 to 7 inches. The entire state is getting accumulating snow right now in single-digit temperatures. No freezing rain concerns here, just straight snow. Oklahoma is a different beast. Oklahoma City is forecasting 9 to 14 inches of snow. Tulsa looking at 10 to 15 inches. Down toward Ardmore, we're talking 3 to 8 inches, and some of that snow total is actually going to be sleet. Southern Oklahoma is definitely going to see some sleet mixed in, no doubt about it. The freezing rain doesn't really become a factor until you get to the southern half of the state, where Broken Bow could sneak up to about a quarter inch. Texas being the massive state it is, let me break this down region by region. The Panhandle, including Amarillo, is looking at 5 to 7 inches of snow with maybe a little freezing rain, but nothing major. As you move further south toward Lubbock and surrounding areas, several inches of snow are expected, but the ice totals start climbing. Southwest Texas is looking at a few inches of snow and sleet, combined with significant freezing rain, 2 to 4/10 of an inch in spots, and that's getting into major ice storm territory. The Abilene area is looking at 1 to 2 inches of snow and sleet with lighter amounts overall, but the freezing rain potential in this corridor could produce an all-out ice storm. South Central Texas has winter storm warnings dipping pretty far south, though the criteria for warnings isn't as high down there. They could see a dusting of sleet and snow with some freezing rain. Houston, you've got winter weather alerts up. Madisonville is forecasting 3/10 of an inch of freezing rain. Crockett is closer to 4/10. Houston itself might only see a few hundredths of an inch of freezing rain, but that's absolutely enough to put a solid glaze down. You don't have to drive very far north before you're getting into ice storm territory. Dallas-Fort Worth is looking at a couple inches of snow and sleet, and honestly, if Dallas gets 2 inches of anything frozen, it's probably going to be sleet. The freezing rain situation there is ice storm caliber with anywhere from a quarter to a half inch expected. Once you get into the northeastern sections of Texas, that's where you can push over half an inch of freezing rain. This entire region is going to be an absolute war zone. Now, let me talk about Louisiana because this is where things get really nasty. The Texarkana and Shreveport area is going to see some of the heaviest precipitation, and it's all going to be frozen. Texarkana and Shreveport are both looking at 1 to 2 inches of snow or sleet, but the freezing rain is what's going to cripple this region. Shreveport is forecasting half an inch. Monroe is looking at 3/4 of an inch of freezing rain. When you get to 3/4 of an inch of ice, you're running a serious risk of absolutely devastating the power grid with all the downed trees and power lines. This area needs to prepare because the cold air following this system is going to be brutal. If you lose power, it's going to be a really bad situation. Mississippi is facing some truly diabolical numbers. Jackson was actually not forecasting any freezing rain earlier, but they've now bumped it up to 3/10 of an inch. That tells me the cold air boundary has sagged further south than initially expected. But here's the thing about Jackson. You're just south of a nightmare scenario. From Jackson up to Philadelphia to Columbus, Mississippi, there's going to be an incredibly tight gradient. Any eastward movement of that cold air boundary could take you from a cold rain to a massive freezing rain event instantly. The numbers further north in Mississippi are honestly hard to believe. Greenwood is looking at an inch of freezing rain. Yazoo City isn't much better. Vicksburg is forecasting 8/10 of an inch. Tunica is going for 1.25 inches of freezing rain. This is an extreme ice storm situation, and I cannot stress enough how serious this is going to be. Arkansas is another major winter weather state that has been absolutely crushed over the last several winters. Northern sections of the state are looking at mainly snow and sleet, anywhere from 1/2 foot to a foot. Little Rock could see 1 to 4 inches of snow and sleet with a potential burst of snow tomorrow morning. The freezing rain is where things get really nasty, though. Northern Arkansas isn't going for much, and Little Rock actually isn't forecasting a lot of freezing rain either. But once you get into southern and eastern Arkansas, that's where you can see 1/4 to 1/2 inch accumulations. Far southeastern areas could push up to 3/4 of an inch. Western Tennessee is looking at 1 to 3 inches of snow and sleet. Memphis could get a solid front-end thumping in the northwest part of the state. Dyersburg wouldn't surprise me at all if they picked up 1/2 foot of snow and sleet. The freezing rain situation is brutal here too, with areas like Parsons looking at 3/4 of an inch. This is going to be a mess across western and west central Tennessee. Missouri is all snow with no freezing rain expected, maybe some sleet in southern areas. St. Louis is looking at 7 to 11 inches, Columbia 5 to 9, Jefferson City 6 to 10, Springfield 9 to 13. Where Paducah, Missouri, and Illinois come together, we're looking at similar numbers with Mount Vernon at 8 to 11 inches and Evansville 8 to 12. Illinois is looking at 2 to 5 inches in Peoria and Chicago, but you really have to get into the southern areas of the state before you start seeing consistent 1/2 foot totals. Now here's where the meteorology gets really interesting. Sunday morning, we're going to see a classic cold air damming event. You might wonder why it's raining in Nashville and Knoxville while freezing rain is falling in Atlanta, Greenville, Spartanburg, and Charlotte. That's because cold air gets trapped east of the mountains and anchors in place while low pressure noses in warm air aloft. The surface stays cold east of the mountains while the Tennessee Valley warms up. There's actually a chance Nashville switches to rain before switching back to winter weather. Northern Georgia and the Atlanta area are now going for 3/10 of an inch of freezing rain. That's why confidence got high enough to issue ice storm warnings. Gainesville is looking at 4/10 or more. Jasper could see over 1/2 inch. Northeast Georgia is going to get absolutely hammered with freezing rain, and I think below freezing temperatures will hold for the entire event in extreme northeast Georgia. Columbia, South Carolina is forecasting 3/10 of an inch of freezing rain. Anything over 1/4 inch starts causing issues. Once you hit 1/2 inch, you start seeing widespread power outages. Lancaster is looking at over 1/2 inch. Newberry and Winnsboro are getting into major ice storm territory. The upstate of South Carolina and southwest North Carolina are facing a major to potentially extreme ice storm. The Greenville-Spartanburg area is going to be a war zone with 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of freezing rain forecast. Charlotte is in the same boat. At the beginning of the system, these areas could also see 1/2 inch of sleet, maybe even some snow in the higher elevations. Virginia is looking at several inches of snow and sleet from Blacksburg to Roanoke, with a lot of sleet mixing in. The ice totals have actually increased. Richmond is forecasting 2 to 6 inches of snow and sleet and 1/2 inch of freezing rain on top of that. That is a major winter storm recipe for disaster. Several inches of frozen precipitation with 1/2 inch of ice on top creates a straight glacier, just an ice crusting on everything. The D.C. corridor is looking at 4 to 10 inches of snow and sleet with some freezing rain as well. West Virginia is going to be a sloppy storm, especially south of Charleston, where the warm nose could significantly cut back totals, but Beckley is still looking at over 4/10 of an inch of freezing rain on top of whatever snow and sleet falls. Kentucky is facing a major storm. Louisville 9 to 13 inches, Lexington 8 to 12. The freezing rain totals have increased, with London looking at 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch on top of 3 to 7 inches of snow and sleet. Goodness gracious. Indiana's southern half is looking at several inches of snow, with Indianapolis at 8 to 11. Ohio's southern areas could get some freezing rain, but the middle and northern sections are looking at 1/2 foot to a foot of snow, with Cleveland at 8 to 12 inches. Pennsylvania is a big winter storm, anywhere from 8 to as much as 16 inches of snow, with some sleet mixing in the southern areas. Philadelphia could see a 1/4 inch of freezing rain on top of 6 to 11 inches of snow. New York City, because millions of people live there, I want to zoom in. They're going for 8 to 12 inches of snow. This will be the biggest winter storm of the season for the city. A few hundredths of an inch of freezing rain is possible as well. Southern New England, including Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, is looking at a solid 1 to 1.5 feet of snow. Buffalo and upstate New York are also facing major accumulations. This storm is incredibly widespread. Now let's talk about what comes after this beast moves out. The temperatures following this system are absolutely brutal. Monday morning lows will be well below zero once you get into the snowpack areas. Single digits will reach all the way down into northern Georgia and the upstate of South Carolina. Charlotte is going for a low of 6 degrees. Whoever gets snow or sleet on the ground will absolutely see single digits. Tuesday morning stays bitterly cold across the entire region. Here's where things get really interesting for the pattern ahead. The 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from January 29th through February 2nd is calling for a high chance of below average temperatures. We're looking at potential Arctic outbreak conditions across the southeast, mid-Atlantic, and the entire region shown in that bluish-purple coloring on the maps. That's going to wrap it up for this update. I know that was a lot of information, but I wanted to make sure everyone in the impacted areas has the details they need to prepare. If you're in the Southern Plains, this system is already cranking up for you tonight. Stay safe out there, make your preparations, and I'll see you in the next update. Take care, everyone.